Good morning. Judy Haddad here, owner of Orange Purple Passions, My Healing LLC. And I love how the cat comes to visit every time I'm doing a video. Executive director and founder of 5 Purple Oranges, my charity. This is Hit by a Truck, my journey to find faith and purpose after the loss of my child. And I was gonna talk to you about more physical and emotional healing this week, but it's just not where I am. I want to talk a little bit about the start of my journey to find a purpose. The beginning of my physical healing was a lot of me lying in bed. I couldn't put any weight on my foot till about November. So the crash happened August of 2014. November 2014, I was able to start trying to add weight. I think we did it like a certain number of pounds every week. And so I had to buy a scale. I had never owned a scale. And I had to practice putting weight on my left leg. In the meantime, I was using crutches and using those fun little electric carts in the stores, and people were driving me everywhere. I couldn't drive, and thankfully I hadn't been cleared to drive because I still had that crazy dizziness from the BPPV. So I spent a lot of time in a lot of pain and severe pain, and it took a long time to figure out what might be the right combination of meds for me. And again, I'm gonna get there on the next thing, but I spent a lot of time hanging out in bed, talking to my lawyer about the civil case, and talking to occasionally checking in with the investigators about the criminal case. And I kept saying to my lawyer, well, because the investigators had a lot of training in crash, and because in the beginning, I know now, I didn't know then, in the beginning, the man who killed my child had said something on the scene of the crash that led the investigators to look at it as a homicide as opposed to just an accident. So they were investigating the crash, and I was feeling like, okay, I'm gonna let that go a little bit, but that was the type of thing where I was worried about it all the time. I was worried about more than anything else. I need this guy charged. It's not gonna do anything. It's not gonna bring Alon back. It's not gonna give me any closure. It's not real justice. But I just knew that it had to be done. I know even more now, and I will get into that at some point. So I spent a lot of time worrying in general. So I was worrying about the criminal case. I was worried about going to work. I was worried about my body. I was worried about the civil case. I had all that Marco stuff hanging over my head. I didn't know how I was going to support myself. I had bills upon bills upon bills. And I had already been told by that point by my lawyer, do not expect a payout. This is not going to be a big payout. These are the laws in Wisconsin. This is what we're up against. It's going to be nothing. And comparatively speaking, he was right. Yeah. So that's for another day. So I had a lot of, the impetus was strong for me to get physically healthy. I was so angry. I was so angry at the man who did this that I was like, I'm not letting him have any more space in my head. I'm not letting him take my physical body. It was bad enough I was dealing with Marco. I feel like that was enough. I'm not gonna let this guy also take something from me. So, So I spent a lot of time in pain, a lot of it from all this worry. And one of the stresses was my job. When the crash happened, I was on vacation from my job, which was, I ran a nature museum in a park district for a community a couple doors down. I had originally got my MLS in, I'm not even going to tell you what year, but I had been a librarian for many years, and then after I had Alon, I shifted into informal education, and this sort of combined the two, this job. But Alon spent a lot of time with me at the museum at work. He had a fish there that we had wanted a thing at a contest. I know I've already said some of this before, but bear with me. So the thought of returning there for some reason just was not comforting, and it created a lot of stress in my body. It was really, really, I couldn't wrap my mind around that was my life, that's what I was going to return to. It wasn't work. By the end of it, it wasn't work I was enjoying, not the work itself, but I had 3 bosses above me that I can tell you, two of whom remind me a lot of the sheriff in the race I was just sort of helping with, running the sheriff we were running against. Just very arrogant, very mansplaining, very round faces, one of whom I'm sure was cheating on his wife, very like sexist and misogynist. Just didn't care about people's worth at all, didn't value any of their employees. And I tried to look past that. And see the humanity in some of them. Well, on September 21st, none of the 2 at the very top who would have been the ones deciding my fate showed up to Alon's memorial. That was a big sign to me. The women in the office who barely knew me were there, but none of the guys who knew my son, spent time with my son, saw him working events. I mean, he wasn't getting paid to work events, teach kids how to fish. He wasn't getting paid to do that. So that sort of was an insult. The fact that like other organizations, Alon School dedicated a whole area to him. Other places wanted to dedicate things to Alon, and these guys couldn't even like show up. At one point during my recovery, when I still wasn't able to drive and I was still on crutches, I asked a friend who worked there still to take me to my office. I knew someone would be there late at night, and I knew my office I'd be able to get into my office, because I just knew that I did not want to come back. And if the case were, if push came to shove and I had anything that was going to allow me not to return to work, I wanted my stuff. I didn't want to go there. I just wanted my stuff. So I cleaned out as much as I could. I mean, my office was a mess, so I apologize to anybody who had to come in after me. It looked clean, and some of it was organized, but some of it was just a hot mess. So I took everything that I thought I could. I took some pictures and just anything that had anything to do with Alon. I didn't care about the work, because again, I was in this place where I was just trying to heal my body, and I still at that time, I'm gonna guess this was about October of 2014 that I went and did this. I still don't think I grasped the fact that Alon was not returning to this earth. Like, I literally thought, okay, if these guys at the sheriff's office are gonna do this work to get this to go to trial, I'm not gonna say convict him, because that's all on the DA and the judge. And if these guys, and if I do my best to work on my body, if I get myself back to where I can take care of him, he's gonna come back to me. I'm not even sure that was drug-addled. I really think that was what I was believing at the time. So I kept trying trying to delay my return to work. I kept asking my doctor, please just give me as much time as I could, but there came a point where I was getting disability from my like pension plan with work, but not from the state or from the government. That wasn't where I was going. I'm not that type of like, even at the time when I was supposed to return to work, I was just driving. I still couldn't walk without pain. There's a lot of things I couldn't do. I couldn't sit for long periods of time. My job involved a lot of sitting. My job involved a lot of spending time with kids. All of that was going to be hard for me, but I'm not one who just wants to sit there and collect disability, so that wasn't where I was going to go. I knew that wasn't who I was. I was just trying to figure it out. What can I do? How can I make this better? So I had a thought that one of the gentlemen I felt had gotten a bad rap. Like, everybody thought he was a real jerk, and I was like, you know, I'm seeing that he has these particular attributes. I think it's just, he's really, underneath it all, probably a good guy. Let me meet him for lunch and try to discuss my return and like my needs physically. So I had this meeting. I had this meeting with him in a restaurant, and I just told him like what was going on with me physically, how I felt like, you know, I needed to ease back into things, and this is the best way, and I'm not trying to like get one over on you, but like these are the exercises I need to stop and do that my physical therapist has given me, and this is what I need for my body. And I think going back to my building to start is going to be hard because there's no one in the building at the most of the days of the week. We didn't always have open hours, and there was going to be no one there. So I was worried about something physically happening to me and me not being able to contact anybody. In fact, I had an incident happen at the building where I had to call we had rangers. I had to call them because I had an incident where a woman was doing drugs in the bathroom, and a homeless woman with a child. It was not the best situation for any of us. But she wanted to use the locker room so I could take a shower and everything, because my building was in the same building as the pool. Lovely. And I couldn't let her in there, and I had to, like, they didn't show up till long after I got her out of the building. And at that time, I did not feel safe. During that incident, I'm sitting there with a panic button that calls like the cops, and they don't show up. I think it actually calls 911, but still no one showed up. So I had this fear, like, I'm going to be in this building, I'm going to be alone, something's going to happen to me. It's not going to be pleasant. I talked to him a lot about that. We made arrangements for what I was going to do. Next thing I know, I show up for work, so I push it off until the 15th of February. And I just had to laugh because one of my concerns was my building never, ever, ever, ever had the snow or the ice cleared from the front. And I had slipped many times and had laid on the ground for minutes at a time with no one noticing anything wrong. And I thought, I can't afford to fall. I can't afford to hurt my body. That just can't happen. I'm so broken. I'm barely moving. I can't afford to fall. So, you know, I was supposed to work at this other building with my immediate supervisor, and it was great. They had an extra desk available, and I would go back to my building when I knew someone was there, one of my staff, and that I would be there to supervise my staff, but at least I'm not alone in the building. I'll get started on all the paperwork I have to do. Well, this was not going to happen, apparently. So I started the first day back in my building, and I was like, I'm not going down to my office. I told them I'm not going down to my office. I couldn't go down to my office. I walked in the building, and I like almost lost it just walking in the building. I'm like, I'm not going down to my office. So I had my supervisor and his supervisor meet with me in the front office of the building, and I sat there and I tried to get some work done and talk to them about what they needed from me. And that's sort of how day one went, which was a disaster. And the next day, that was, I believe, a Thursday. The next day was a Friday. my supervisor had said to me on Thursday, just come work in my building. I'm not going to be there. I will clear it with them, but I'm not going to be there. Come work in my building. So I worked in their building. I felt great. I was able to, he worked in a gym. I was able to use the floor of the basketball courts to do my exercises. I was able to get up and walk around. I was able to get some work done. I put my head down and get some work done. Then, unbeknownst to me, the secretary there, or whatever, receptionist, called, she was friends with the president of our park district, and she was also on the village board of one of the villages that we served, and she was just a real bit of fun, for lack of a better word. And they came over for no other reason than just to see me. I'm not stupid. They had no other reason to be there. And they're just about to leave, and the one turns to me, the executive director turns to me and says, "Didn't I tell you you can't work here in this building?" And I was like, "Well, Scott, my supervisor, gave me permission. He said he cleared it with you guys." "Oh no, he never talked to us," whatever. So I think that was at the point where I looked at him and I said, "I pray to God this never happens to you, because you have 2 sons. I hope nothing like this happens to you, and if it does, I hope someone treats you better than you're treating me." They leave. I go into my boss's office and I call him. I'm like, "Well, what the hell is going on?" He's like, "I know they called me and it's this big thing." And I'm just like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? I don't even like this job. I like the people. I like parts of the job, but dealing with these jerks who are paying me basically minimum wage. I have my master's degree. I could be making a crap ton more money, doing anything else almost. And I'm like, why am I doing this? I don't have a lawn. I don't need this job. What am I going to do? So I call a couple friends. I have one friend who calms me down and convinces me that Alon left me a gift, that his college fund, which we had built up to, and by we, I mean my parents, had built up to about $16,000, I think, I want to say around there, that his college fund would be, that's his gift to me to give myself time to figure out what I'm supposed to do. So I'm like, okay, I'm feeling calm now. The middle boss comes back and talks to me. The one who I thought I had arranged all this with. And I'm trying to think if I was there. I feel like I had this conversation with him at the other building though. I think I go back to my other building at this point. I think that's what happens. I go back to my building. He comes to meet me over there, and he says, he just is like, "What do you think you're doing, blah, blah, blah." And I said, "You have to make accommodations for me. I have this injury. I'm like trying not to die here. It's February. There's no ice removal from the front of my building. I can't be alone here. It's troubling to me that I'm gonna get hurt and no one's gonna be here to help me." And I had talked to my lawyer. My lawyer says they have to just make reasonable accommodations. So I think that they were willing to give me a desk at the back in their building, which would have been fine, except even getting into their building was frightening. Like the building I wanted to work at, you just get out of your car, you walk straight in. Their building, you have to climb a steep ramp or steps to get into it. And I had fallen on the ice in front of their building more than once. So I'm like, thinking about it, I'm like, all right, well, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? And I'm like, he's like, well, we're gonna meet on Monday. And at one point I got very heated in the conversation, and I was like, F you, and I can't believe you guys would treat me this way. And he's like, I would fire anybody else for saying that to me. And I was like, just do it. Like, what do you think I care if you fire me? Just do it. I would have loved that, because I would have collected unemployment and I would have just been super happy with that. But he did not. So we had arranged to meet on Monday, the 3 men in charge, like my supervisor, his supervisor, and the executive director. And then I believe it was also this other third guy that is just some big head honcho at the park district. What to do? And I was supposed to come in Monday and discuss everything. So I came in Monday with my resignation written. They did not expect that. They expected me to be like all the other women that they had done this to, and a few of the men that they had done this to, hat in hand, like, oh, I'm so sorry, and please let me keep my job. And I came in, threw my resignation letter. I was like, before you even say anything here, and they started to freak out. One of the reasons they started to freak out is because my attorney had already started speaking to them, to their attorney, and their attorney was so afraid I was gonna sue. And part of me really wishes I had, just to poke at them, because they had done this to so many people, and but it was just one other thing I couldn't take on. But they had like screwed over so many people. It's not even funny. I don't even know how that place still exists, and that anybody, like the board, lets them get away with what they get away with. But having said that, I wasn't always a model employee. I always put them on first. I worked all like the night and weekend events they needed me to work. There's no doubt about that. But I don't, like, at the end of the day, if I'm sick, I'm not showing up to work, or, you know, what have you. So, you know, I'll give them that. But it was such a load off to be able to do that. Like, when I just walked away, I felt amazing. And I went to my physical therapist afterwards, like the week afterwards, and she was actually able to stop physical therapy with me. Like, I think we had 1 or 2 more weeks, and she's like, you're good now. Let me give you some stuff to work at home, and you're good. And the reason was that part of that was that stress of that return to that place was holding my body back. Like, it was creating so much tension and pain. And we don't always get that gift to be able to get up and walk away, but that was the gift Lon gave me. It's been a hard slog since then, on the purpose wagon, so to speak, but that was a gift he gave me, and it wasn't where I was supposed to be. I didn't feel any connection in a positive way to that place. I felt that I had always been, you know, wasn't appreciated. He wasn't appreciated. A few months later, the executive director called me and said he wanted to install a bench somewhere on the property with Alon's name on it. And I actually never called him back. And I talked to one of the ladies who's still employed there, and she said, you know, I really appreciate it, and he helped me with my programs. I would like the bench there for those of us who do remember him. But I was in the mindset of, I don't want my son even remotely associated with that place. They don't know how to treat human beings. Alon was the type of person who would never have stood up for their bullying, and I just don't want him there. So that was the beginning of my journey into finding my purpose, and it's partially still ongoing, but it was a good way. It was tied into my physical healing as well. It's just getting that one monkey off my back. Now, not everybody has that. A lot of us with injuries and with issues, we have horrible bosses, you know, we still have to return to work, but at some point you find something in it that creates some sort of joy for you, some sort of purpose. I knew that's not what I was going to do. And I had to take the time then to figure out what that was going to do. Now, a normal person would have actually done that. But a normal person does not have my naggy Jewish mom. More on that next time. Thanks for watching.